All right, and we are here with the Big Brother Basics cast season 2. We have Cameron, Jason, Jermaine, Katie, Kirsten, Mike, Willie, and the winner of BB Basics season 2, Patrick. Congratulations. Welcome to the BB Basics season 2 reunion. We are so glad that you are all here. So let's go ahead and get started with the Saboteur, because when we came up with this season, we wanted to make the Saboteur twist something, to liven up the game, make it not as straightforward as a basic Big Brother format. And what y'all may not know about the Saboteur is that Kirsten had no idea she was the Saboteur as well. We didn't cast her initially to be the Saboteur. We asked her to be the Saboteur after she was already brought into the cast. So she was socializing for about 2 hours, and then all of a sudden we say, Kirsten, please join this Google Hangout with production. We have an important message for you, and that's when she was given the Saboteur offer. Kirsten's reaction when you received that initial chat that, hey, you...
It froze.
But are we surprised?
I'm not sure if Kirsten answered, or if because I'm pretty sure I lagged.
You froze.
It froze like halfway through, I think.
Okay, well, Kirsten, go ahead and take it away with what your reaction was with being offered to be a part of this season's twist.
I mean, so right away, he didn't tell me exactly what the twist was going to be. He just messaged me saying that, asking if I could be like a part of the twist, etc., etc. He would give me more information. And I mean, coming into the game, I had a completely different strategy than what I actually did. Like, I didn't want to be in all these alliances. I didn't want to have all these people. But so right away, my first my initial reaction was like, shit, I'm not winning this game. I have to make this new strategy up. My game is tanked. I'm getting out first, etc., etc. So it was really kind of a weird reaction, I guess. It was hard to adjust.
And adjust you did. I have to commend Kirsten because she didn't know that she was coming in to be a part of the season's twist, and she just grabbed it by the horns and did it the best that she possibly could have. So on behalf of production, Kirsten, thank you so much for agreeing to be the Saboteur this season and for doing an excellent job with these season tasks. So yes, we just told Kirsten that if she were to complete 3 weekly tasks and 3 seasonal tasks, that she would receive a handsome reward. She didn't realize it would be a Diamond Power veto, but that's what it was. And so every week she would receive a task to complete, and then throughout the season she could determine when to complete 3 out of 4 tasks that were given to her. So you'll be able to see that in the episodes of what she was doing to cause a lot of mayhem and paranoia. But let's go ahead and talk about week 1. Patrick, I believe you were completely adamant, and here I found out you were the first week's HOH.
Keith, you need to redo that whole thing.
Where his face is frozen is hilarious right now.
I'm sorry, I guess it's my connection, but Patrick, what was your reaction to winning the first week's HOH?
Well, you were on the call with me when you opened my envelope. I was similar to Kirsten. I was like, "Fuck, my game is over." Which is a little bit dramatic, I know, but I mean, my strategy in these games in the past, which has worked, has been to really not try in a competition for about 4 rounds. And I told Keith that during my interview. And so getting that literally on night 1, I was like, well, fuck. And then, especially because we had made that deal with our team that we weren't going to nominate each other, and everyone that I had gone really close to leading up to the challenge was on the other team. I liked the people on my team. I got to know them over time, but literally Katie, Jermaine, Cameron, Ryan, Kirsten were the people that I was the closest to in the game going into that challenge, and I ended up on a different team from all of them and with that deal. So I was like, I had no idea what I was going to do.
For sure, and it did seem that even though the teams were kind of randomly selected, it did play a huge part in the strategy for at least week one. It gave half the house safety, and it gave another half the house a lot of paranoia. So it was just so much fun to watch. It ended up being Cameron and Sam. And Kirsten, let's talk about one of your tasks, because you were randomly assigned to go after, make sure somebody is nominated pre or post veto, and it was Cameron. So how did that factor into how you basically flipped the vote from Sam to Cameron?
So Patrick had mentioned like before veto that he wanted Sam gone, like for sure, she was target number one, etc., etc. So I had a fun time. Luckily, I bonded with Ryan really quickly, and we both agreed that like me for my saboteur twist, him because he just wanted Cameron out over Sam, that we were going to try and do whatever it took to make sure that Sam stayed that week. So all during the last like few hours up until Cameron's eviction, I don't think I've campaigned that hard like for anyone this entire game to leave. And I was getting messages from everybody like, are you sure this is what we should do? Are you sure? Katie and Jermaine were like, are you sure this is what we should do? But at the end of the day, Ryan and I managed to flip the house, and I got Cameron out, which successfully got one of my tasks completed.
Cameron, how do you feel hearing that news that your name was randomly decided for Kirsten to go after?
Suddenly I can't read. Who is she? What? I mean, I already knew this. Am I supposed to act surprised? Oh no, what? Ah, I am hurt and betrayed. No, I didn't really care about either of them, so it didn't really affect me in any way.
And also, shout out to Cameron for stepping up and being a jury member in the last minute of the last inning. Thank you so much, Cameron.
You're welcome.
Excellent. We'll move on to the next week. So it was Willie who ended up winning the head of household competition, and I think you started becoming the trendsetter of going after the person that got second place in the same competition, because you ended up nominating Blair and Sam for eviction. What kind of went through your thought processes? Why did you want to target Sam? Because you were very adamant on getting Sam out of that week.
I mean, she was pretty much the biggest person in the house, and also as well, I also knew about the whole Sam, Kirsten, Ryan, and then Jermaine and Katie alliance. So then instead of going after one of them specifically, I figured going after Sam because that would cut their ties with Ryan, as well as be an obvious reason to say, hey, Sam has been really loud. People also thought she was a saboteur, so that was just my reason behind it.
For sure. And Jermaine, I'm going to ask you the next question because you told Sam that if you were in the veto competition, you would throw the veto competition. You told Sam that if you won the veto, that you definitely were going to use it on her, so your way of helping her was to throw the competition. And so round after round, you just end up staying in the competition, and you ended up winning the power of veto. Tell me, what was your reaction when this happened?
I'm pretty sure my reaction during the competition said it all when I won the round where she got out, and you were like, "Congratulations, Jermaine and Patrick, we're moving on to the next round." I was like, because honestly, it was going on for so long that I just wanted to get it over with, and so I was just like, "Oh my gosh." And Ryan was still in it, and I didn't want Ryan to win it. So I was going. Like, Sam completely was a distant memory. And then when I won it, it just, like, hit me, and I was just like, oh, no, I was supposed to be throwing this for her. Like, oops.
Can I jump in quick?
Sure, go ahead.
Because Jermaine and I had both agreed going into that we were throwing it, and we were the final two. So when it came down to us that last round, I literally just sat there. I was like, Jermaine can win it. I won first stage 2H. I'm not doing this again.
But I had already told her, like, prior to the competition, I was like, I want you to win it. I'll throw it to you. But just so that you know, if I win it, I will not be using it on you. Didn't plan on actually winning it, but I'm glad I told her I wasn't going to use it on her. So she was a lot cool with that. She was okay with that. because she was like, you did tell me up front you weren't going to use it on me. So, but I'm still giving you major side eye for winning that competition after you told me you were going to let me win it.
Awesome. And so we go into the eviction voting, but before that, I believe this is when the saboteur exposed an alliance. Kirsten, kind of talk to me about your thought process of why you selected the 4 people that you did: Mike, Willie, Jermaine, and Katie.
So initially, I was going to do for the longest time was Sam, Jermaine, and Katie. But at the end of the day, I decided that I wanted to do Jermaine and Katie because they were the duo, or so I thought, obviously. And then I knew Willie and Sam just like did not have trust like between them whatsoever. Willie thought Sam was the sab, Sam thought Willie was the sab, and I wanted like that to amplify, I guess. So I wanted people to think that Sam was like making herself seem like wanted people to like feel sorry for her. So I made sure to like try to build more hatred between her and the rest of the house to target her as the saboteur and then take that target off of me if anybody thought it was myself.
For sure. And that vote that week was 6-1, where you were the sole hinky vote because you got to complete another saboteur task, which is to vote in the minority. So who was the hinky vote? It was Kirsten because she was a saboteur. We go into the next HOH competition. It's pretty ridiculous. Mike, tell me what you're thinking about minute 20 versus hour 3 of the spinning competition.
Yes.
Yeah, so one of my least favorite moments in any game ever was close to hour mark, like 3 in that challenge. But 20 minutes in, I was thinking, I was looking around and I was actually kind of surprised at how many people seemed to. I was curious to see how many people, how far people were going to take it, but I knew that a challenge like that, I can go to a place in my mind where just quitting is impossible. So I knew I was going to win 20 minutes in. I didn't know it was going to take me 3 hours.
Yeah, it was very impressive to watch. And I remember, because you were kind of going under the radar the first 2 weeks, you mentioned before this HOH competition that this is the week you wanted to win HOH. Why were you so adamant about winning the week 3 head of household?
Yeah, well, I had gotten feedback from my fellow house guests that I was not being social enough, and that definitely made me nervous. And I appreciate Willie not nominating me during his head of household, but he was honest with me that my name was being mentioned because I hadn't built enough connections with people in the house. So going into that round, I wanted to be in the power position so that everybody else in the house had to come to me a little bit and just make that give everybody an excuse to talk to me and me an opportunity to build relationships where I was slow out of the gate.
Sure. Excellent. Yeah. And this one also is a question for you, Mike. Going into your nominations, the saboteur struck again and locked everybody out of the pantry except for Jason and for Ryan, who were the 2 people you ended up nominating. Was this a factor at all in your decision, or not really?
No, I was going to nominate Jason and Ryan before that happened. It was a factor in the sense that it made me stop and think, is that a good idea? Because I figured that the 2. Jason and Ryan that I was considering nominating, that they were going to have an advantage in the next Power Veto Challenge. So it made me stop and consider that. But at that point, I knew who I wanted to play with, and I saw Ryan as the strongest element of the other group that I wasn't trying to play with. So I knew that ultimately he had to go. And then if it wasn't going to be Ryan, it had to be somebody from that group, which was going to be Jason or Kirsten.
Got it. Thank you so much. The next question I have is for Katie. Now, Katie, you win your first Power Veto competition of the season right here. Your word challenge using your English teacher finesse. And you got to challenge between the HOH Mike and Ryan. Do you feel like this was the moment where you're going to expose, hey, maybe the Teacher's Pet Alliance needs to find another teacher?
If I'm being honest with you, I didn't hear your instructions initially the first time and thought I had to pick Ryan. I didn't think I could pick the person who had picked me, and then like when I realized I did, then it was all like, oh, that wasn't my intention, but I understand that's how it 100% came off. So in the end, that ended up being what it was anyways, so not a big deal. But yeah, that's how it went.
What was your thoughts of the Teachers Pets Alliance? Was it something that you think could have gone far, or was it doomed from the start?
Yo, like I legit thought it was good, and then when I hooked up with Patrick and he kept telling me that Kirsten and Ryan were coming after me, I was like, oh, so we're not good then. So I was like totally on it and ready to go until Patrick started like telling me how they were going around saying, like throwing my name under the bus to everyone, which this game ended up being like a common theme. So it's like not really that big a deal to me in the end. But like I legit thought it was something strong and good and was willing to do it. And I felt betrayed, so I just struck first. That's all.
For
As
sure.
teachers do, they always get the upper hand.
And there wasn't that much time to think about it. As soon as your veto ceremony was over, we went straight into an instant eviction. Willie, what was going through your mind when the instant eviction was announced and people were trying to figure out who to vote for?
I felt like Ryan was the obvious choice from what a lot of people were saying, because I know Katie had said from like pretty much from the beginning she didn't really trust Kirsten and Ryan, and the fact that Pat was also not really on their side. As like the only thing that I thought was maybe could have went the other way was Jermaine in that vote, but I mean obviously the way everything fell, Ryan went home that week.
For sure, yeah, and it ended up being a 4-2 vote with Ryan leaving. Kirsten and Sam were the only 2 votes to keep Ryan, and we're going into this fast-forward week. Kirsten, you just received your handsome reward. You completed all of your seasonal and weekly tasks. It could not have come at a better time. You're in the minority. You won the Diamond Power of Veto. Here's the rules for the DPOV, by the way. She was able to use the Diamond Power of Veto any time between the final 8 through the final 6. She decided to use it immediately. But Kirsten, tell me your reaction when you found out it was the Diamond Power of Veto, first of all.
Well, right away, it was a really big relief because, I mean, my closest ally one of my closest allies in the game had just gotten out. I was, like, all alone. I had absolutely nobody to trust. Katie had betrayed me. Jermaine had betrayed me. Like, I was, whew. So my first reaction was like, oh my god, like, this is what I need. I can finally make a big move, get a big player out of this game. And, I mean, I guess that's what I did, but we don't have to talk about it.
Well, we'll go ahead and talk about...
Can I just clarify? It's not betrayal if you were coming after us first. It's just reaction. So Patrick's a liar?
I wasn't coming after you guys.
So Patrick's a liar then?
Yeah, Patrick lied about that.
Okay.
I was going to be, like, true to the Teachers Pet Alliance until, like I would have chosen you guys over Willie and Jason.
I just wanted to clarify that, like, Patrick was lying to us then, because
They told me they did not trust you at all. They both told me they did not trust you.
So one of you is lying at this point then, and...
Well, can I just say that Sam also told me that Kirsten and Ryan came to her and said they didn't trust me and Katie as well.
So not just Patrick then. So it was just us reacting to information we were getting, not betrayal. I just want to clarify that. Betrayal is when you act first. So you betrayed us.
I would not have acted on it, though. Like, I don't think I would have not, like, had I won the HOH and you didn't vote Ryan out, then I don't think I would have come after you guys.
I don't think Kirsten would have acted on it, but I think Ryan would have.
Yeah, and I don't know if I ever, like, I don't think that I went to Katie and was like, Ryan and Kirsten are trying to get you out this round, you need to get them out ASAP. I literally just brought to them, like, what I had heard, which was they don't trust you, and I don't think they want to keep you around for very long. Which, to me, was true. Like, that's what I had been told. Obviously, I didn't, know exactly what people were going to do in the future, but...
We'll go into the fast-forward head of household. It's a very high-paced event of festivities. Jason, going from the bottom, nominated, and now into a position of power, albeit for only an hour. How did it feel winning the head of household competition, which you were in for basically every round?
It felt good. I didn't really feel like I was really doing anything at that point other than kind of relying on the head of household. So to be able to actually, prove to people that I'm useful at some point, and when the competition was pretty good. Unfortunately, it didn't work out the way I intended it to go. Pearson?
Yeah, it seemed like you had a very clear initial nomination, and you had no idea what to do if the veto were to be used. You nominated Sam and Mike. Sam pulls out a veto win, uses it on herself, and you struggle for a hot minute on who the replacement nominee should be. What made you decide Jermaine?
Simply because I think I was probably out of the reason I had no idea what I was doing is because I felt decently close to everyone to the point where I didn't think they would come after me immediately. And so I pretty much struggled with I had something with Patrick from week 1. I had something with Kirsten and Willie. I was talking to Katie prior to it because I tried to get her to use veto. And then I guess out of by a process of elimination, it came down to Jermaine.
And so Jermaine is on the block, thinking everything's fine and dandy. Jermaine versus Mike. The votes are starting to accumulate. Mike is receiving messages from somebody he thought he could trust in Katie with, I'm sorry, I don't think the votes are there. And then Jermaine's on the block and, oh, I think that this can happen. All of a sudden, if there's a power that's used, Kirsten uses the Diamond Power veto on Mike and replaces the nominee with Katie. Now, Katie, I'm interested to hear your reaction with this power usage and you being the replacement nominee.
So as soon as Kirsten said she was gonna do a nominee, I knew my name was coming up. That was it. I was like, oh yeah, that's definitely gonna be me. The thing that was the most upsetting was Patrick told me that I wasn't going home. He was like, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. And I was upset about it because I loved Jermaine so much and I didn't want him to go home. But Mike and I had a moment then that we've talked about since and we've kind of gone over. But because I had said, Mike, I'm sorry, I can't vote to keep you, you're going home. He kind of threw that back in my face when I was up and said, well, I gotta go with what I'm thinking. And so I was kind of freaked out for like you said, a hot minute, but Patrick really calmed me down. And honestly, this was the point that for me solidified the whole thing with Patrick, because he was like, you're good, you're staying, don't worry, here's who's voting to keep you. I'm talking to these people, telling them you're in the majority, so they'll vote to keep you. So for me, that was the most anyone had ever done for me in the game, and I was that solidified the whole thing with Patrick for me, but it also kind of freaked me out about other people in the game, and obviously that's what made me target Kirsten when I won. And it's what Sam and I created something called Jermaine's Revenge before she left, and we were ready to go and go back on it. And but it was just for me a really big moment to show where I stood with everyone, and that's how I worked for the rest of the game, but based off that particular week actually. So it had a big influence.
It definitely feels like a wake-up call of sorts. Definitely a unleash of the beast that is Katie from then on. And then, Mike, what was your reaction when the DPOV, somebody that you barely talk social or strategy with Kirsten, uses it on you, ensuring your safety because you were 1 foot out of the Basics doors?
Well, obviously I was thrilled. I knew it was that round was a wake-up call for me because I really did trust Katie 100%, and I was legitimately caught off guard when the votes weren't there for me versus Jermaine. So when Kirsten used it, it was I was ecstatic because otherwise I was going home. At the same time, it just felt I didn't love having it used on me because I felt it sort of made me look weak, that I needed somebody else to help me out, or I was going home. But that was the case. So I guess that round sort of showed me that I didn't know exactly where I stood in relation to everybody else. And then having the Diamond Power veto used on me was just kind of that one more thing. I had no idea what was going on, and if that hadn't happened, I would have been gone. So.
Sure. And Jermaine, you ended up being the one to be evicted that week against Katie. Do you think that Kirsten made a mistake in using her DPOV at the final 8?
Hell to the yes, she did. I was just... Well, first of all, when you said if there are any powers that need to be used, which you had never said before. I was like, oh my God, what the fuck is about to happen? And then she pulls out the fucking power of veto, and I'm like, oh my God, you've got to be kidding me. And first thought in my head was, where the hell did she get that from? Like, and I'm thinking, I'm not talking about the diamond power veto, I'm talking about the physical thing. Like, when she pulled it up, I'm like, where did she get that from? How did she get that? That was the first thing I was thinking of. But then, like, after it happened, I was just like, who uses a diamond power of veto when they're not even nominated? I was like, that's crazy. I would never do that. I would only use it to ensure my safety. It was a shitty situation, but ugh.
We were definitely sad to see you go, Jermaine. I am going to play devil's advocate for Kirsten, and this is because I have the receipts. I have what my thoughts were at that time. But before going into the fast forward week, I listed the people that I thought were 100% safe. I listed Patrick, I listed Katie, and I listed Jermaine. And the fact that the DPOV was used to ensure that one of Katie or Jermaine went home that week, I feel like many weeks prior to when y'all would have actually went home had there not been a power or veto usage, was a good use, at least from the viewer's eyes. It ripped the Band-Aid right open. Anybody can win this game. Anybody can step up. And it was just a matter of people trying to form what could happen from that point on. So as a viewer, it was really fun to see Kirsten make that power move and to put Katie and Jermaine on the block, two very, very grounded players inside the Big Brother game from both sides, not just limiting from yellow and pink, but seems like to have connections to a lot of places. And yeah, I think that her using that really opened the game for people like Mike, for people like Willie, for people like Jason, for people that could have been the next people to be evicted from the game. But Kirsten, we haven't heard from you yet. Do you regret using the DPOV at the final 8?
Okay, I've thought about this a lot, especially since I was got out the last week I could use it. So when I got the Diamond Power Veto, my first you'll see in my confessional or whatever, my first initial reaction was I have to do this. I have to use this to get a power player out. I didn't want to use it on myself, and I didn't really want to use it on an alliance member, solely for the fact because I got it because I was the saboteur, I completed the tasks, etc., etc. But I was like, if I need to use a power on myself, like Mike kind of said, then I don't think my gameplay was equal to every single other person. I didn't feel like I was worthy of using it on myself. So when Ryan got voted out, I guess I'm a very emotional person. I'm a very emotional player. My first thought was revenge. I have to avenge Ryan, etc., etc. So, and then people, when it was between Mike and Jermaine on the block, and everybody was like, oh, we have to get Mike out and keep Jermaine. I was like, okay, are you guys dumb? No offense, Mike, and no offense everybody else, but getting Jermaine out, who's obviously a really, really strong player at the time, whereas Mike was more in the background, I wanted to break up the power duo, or so what I thought the power duo was, and so that was my reasoning behind that. Do I regret it? Yes and no. Obviously, I wish I could have stayed or kept it a couple of weeks longer so I could have used it myself and then maybe nominated Jermaine then. But at the end of the day, I did what was best for my game at the time, and I don't really regret it.
For sure, for sure. All right, so we'll move on to the next round. Before the HOH competition even happens, we have a quit. Sam quit and left the game. Mike, I remember you having some thoughts about this. What was your reaction to hearing somebody quit kind of midway, getting pretty far and leaving the game?
Yeah, well, I hate it when people quit. I think it just, it sort of takes some of the fun out of the game for me when somebody that has fought to get to that point and outlasted other people that have fought to get to that point just says, forget it, I'm not having fun, or I'm probably not going to win, so I'm just going to stop playing. That was kind of a big slap in the face, and I sort of threw it in Sam's face. I'm like, I think Jermaine might have appreciated if you had came to this realization a couple days sooner, because he really wanted to be here,
Preach.
Yeah. But you know, I didn't like it. I made that opinion known. I may have been a little harsh in doing so, but yeah, it pissed me off.
For sure, for sure. And it's a completely different dynamic between a Final 7 and a Final 6. Like, it going from Final 7 to 6, it significantly feels smaller, at least in my opinion, as a cast.
So, for me, if I may, Keith, like, the game moved a little bit too fast because of some of those, you know, like Riel being inactive and Sam quitting. Like, if Sam... I was cultivating the Sam option and wanted to have that extra round. A lot could have happened if a lot could have happened differently if she had stayed. And so I think it was disappointing for me because I had plans in mind for that next round that involved Sam. So yeah, I mean it's impossible to tell, but it sucked for me.
Sure, for sure. So yeah, Sam leaves the game, but Katie comes into a position of power. Finds that it's time to play now that she was on the block post veto with the DPOV, has a clear target in mind. She is gunning for Kirsten. Katie, tell me your mentality going into this week, the Final 6.
I don't know if there was really a mentality to talk about. Like, it was just clearly if she had won, she would have gone for me. So she's the easiest target. The hardest part was just thinking of someone to put up next to her. And the only person I had a reason to put up was Willie because this whole Jason, Kirsten, and Willie alliance had come to light and everyone was talking about it. And I was like, well, he lied to me about that at one point. So I thought I'd just use that as someone to put up because everybody else I was really close with. Like I said, that was one of my flaws in this game, that I was close to so many people that it was hard when you come into power to like actually put these people up. So I struggled with that. My mentality was not so much about Kirsten. I said to everyone, was so open with everyone, even Kirsten, that like that was what my plan was. So I didn't have any issues there. The issue, like I said, was just who's the pawn, because everybody seems to be really upset about being a pawn until it's like necessary. So all I thought was, how can I maintain a relationship with someone who's obviously going to stay because Kirsten is going to leave?
And Willie, what was your reaction when Katie put you as the pawn? Because I felt like you were pretty loyal, or at least from your end, you had some loyalty to Katie.
I mean, I was definitely not pleased and definitely pretty shocked. Just the fact that Jason was also a part of that alliance, and like it's not like I've ever voted with her or like wanted to vote with her. Like we've always talked about, like Mike may have went home if the DPOV wasn't used on him, and that was clearly something that Kirsten wanted and something that I didn't necessarily would have reciprocated. But I mean, it's pretty much was either Jason and I knew that at the end of the day, because she would not even think about putting Patrick up.
For sure.
And at the end of the day, sorry.
Go ahead.
Jason was the one that brought Katie and I on call, and that took that next step to expose it and to really fight for his spot. And that was perfect for me because I was looking for anything else that I could use to push Katie to keep Jason off, because I really thought that we needed him at that point. And it wasn't anything personal against Willie, but he was the only other option to get up there that like wasn't a part of my like end game plans at that point. And I didn't know how that was, I think, helpful ammunition for kind of getting Katie to hopefully consider it.
For sure, that was exactly the next step, because Jason, you started stepping up your strategic game. You decided to bring Katie and Patrick together, who you basically didn't have that close of a connection with, and then started spewing this information. Somehow you remain off the block at 6. This is pretty rare, in my opinion, but you were able to save yourself. How did it feel when you weren't an initial nominee?
It felt good. I mean, at that point, I didn't really have anything super solid, and so in my mind, I was creating something solid where I felt like I wasn't necessarily the third one. I felt like I was perfectly in the middle, where those two, at the time, oblivious to the fact that they were working super together, I thought they were both going to be like much closer to me than to with each other. And so when I realized, okay, yes, she went for it. She's not putting me up. She put Willie up. I thought, okay, I have Katie. I have a number on my side. I knew, because I had previously talked to her in just prior to the HOH, and talked about how now that Jermaine's gone, you're kind of a lone wolf. I don't really have anyone. I really want to build something. And so I knew that if essentially I went up, I was essentially fucked. Like I like not like I was fucked as in like I was gonna go home, but I wouldn't have any other alliance to go farther into the game with.
Sure. And Mike, I want to ask you this question because I was actually wondering, at Final Six, you won the power of veto, and it seemed like it never crossed your mind to use it. Now, me, I always am a devil's advocate. You can get more blood on Katie's hands if you use the veto. You could potentially hide the fact that Kirsten used the DPOV on you and just say, oh, tomato, tomato, I'll return a favor. But what made you decide to allow the nominations to stay the same and for Katie to get her way for that week?
There was never a decision to make in my mind. At that point, I had drank the Katie and Patrick Kool-Aid and was on that train till the end of the game. And there was nothing that anybody could have done to make me change Katie's noms or Patrick's noms or make any move against them whatsoever at that point. So, yeah, that never crossed my mind.
For sure. And so the nominations do stay the same. It's Willie and Kirsten, and by unanimous vote, the Saboteur leaves. And yeah, so now as a production through the final 6, final 5. And then we were saying in production, we were like, okay, this is where it's the Patrick and Katie show. I wonder if anybody will be able to test it out. And it seems like nobody was able to because Katie and Patrick made it to the final 2. Katie, Patrick, want to talk a little bit about your roles and how you set yourself up to make the final 2 together?
I think the hardest part was convincing people to do things against their best interest. And I definitely do not think it was in Willie's best interest to keep Patrick, but like Patrick worked really hard on that, said he planted the seeds. I definitely I think it was in our best interest to make an alliance with Jason in order to make sure that like everybody kept us safe. I think our biggest flaw was that we won stuff and had to put ourselves in positions where we revealed that we weren't going to put each other up and stuff like that, which was the hardest part, to not put each other up, really, because we had a few conversations about stuff like that. We very rarely disagreed on what was going to happen, but we knew who was better for each other's games at times and knew who wasn't. Like you said, Kirsten was like really good for his game, but I was like, she needs to go. And like Willie was really good for my game, but at times Patrick was like, he needs to go. And it was just really like, we had some disagreements, but I think the best part was that we were always willing to talk it out and work together and make decisions together.
Yeah, and I would add, well, so, I mean, this isn't going to seem like a big move because everyone always says, like, Final 4 noms don't matter. But when Katie won Final 4 HOH, I immediately told her that she needed to put me up. And I think that that was really, really important because if she hadn't put me up, in my mind, it would have shown Mike and Willie where the cards were. And I just had like immense paranoia that if I wasn't an initial nom and either of them won the veto, that I was going to be gone. Whereas if I was an initial nom and either of them won, I would still have that wiggle room to like try to convince that like I'm not with Katie, I'm with you, blah blah blah.
I'd like to point out that our biggest like argument was actually Mike. We disagreed on, well, not disagreed, but we like worried where Mike stood, and in the end I think we decided that Mike was best for Patrick's game, that Mike would like take Patrick to the end no matter what. And Mike, we actually said that you would cut me at final 3 and take Patrick to final 2. We agreed on that. And
I wasn't going to. I wasn't going to.
It didn't end up factoring into anything anyway, but that was like our thing. That was the only like big disagreement we had, that Mike, like who Mike stood with. And Patrick said that it was him, and I agreed that you guys seemed to have, like, we had a really great personal relationship, like really awesome, and we were strong from the beginning, but Patrick would like tell me things you said to him, and I'd tell him things you said to me. So Mike was really our only weird point that we had, because we both really liked him, but we didn't necessarily know where he stood because he was telling us very similar things the whole time. And Mike, let's be honest, like, you voted Patrick to win, so I think I'm almost justified in thinking that you were kind of more on his side than mine, which is fine. Like, totally, like, I think Patrick is awesome and totally deserved to win too, but like, let's call a spade at this point.
So let's talk to Willie, because Willie, I don't think you might have felt it, but I felt it as a viewer that you were a target, if not at Final 6 through Final 5 through the end of the game. But you still were able to make it to Final 3 because of your Final 5 veto win and your Final 4 veto win. But you did not vote out Patrick, which I found very surprising. Why did you decide to vote out Mike instead of Patrick?
You know, I honestly, the part where I thought that I was in trouble was I was next to Jason, because I really felt like I would have went home if I was next to Jason that week of Final 5. But as far as my Final 3 decision, I mean, I felt like Mike wasn't going to take me at either point, and neither was, and I thought Patrick would probably cut Katie just because of Patrick's been a student of the game and everything like that, and I would be easier to take at the end, and it would be vice versa for Katie. But I mean, well, what happened happened.
For sure. So you sent Mike home. It's the Final 3. Patrick, I think, wins part 1. Katie wins part 2. Katie wins part 3 and takes Patrick. Now let's talk a little bit about the behind-the-scenes stuff, because Patrick, you kept us posted with everything between week 1 through now, and I want to ask you some questions about some of the things that happened along the way. Early on, you received a couple Final 2 deals, one from Katie and one from Kirsten, where they were both telling you basically everything. What made you decide to be more loyal to Katie than Kirsten?
I mean, to be honest, I didn't really pick a side until one of them was gone, for sure. Like kind of like Katie said, for the moment that she like really felt finally was 100% with me was the round that I like fought to keep her over Jermaine, and I was so close with both of them that my goal was to keep both of them around as absolutely long as I could, because they were at like, there was distrust between them, and it was a good spot for me to be in, kind of in the middle. And it honestly came down to Katie winning HOH and being guns blazing for Kirsten. And I wasn't going to fight that. Like, I couldn't show, you know, Katie knew Kirsten and I were close. Like, I was open with Katie about that. So, I mean, but that was one of those moments where, like, we were obviously on different pages. Like, she was going to go after Kirsten. She knew that I, like, wouldn't have been my choice, but, I mean, it was her HOH.
I have a question. Kirsten, did you know that Patrick and I were close?
It's funny because I had a feeling the week before I left that you guys had something, but I was also like thinking I was paranoid because Patrick was like, oh no, I don't have anybody else, blah 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 blah, you're my only Final 2. So no, I wasn't like aware that you were as close as you
Yeah,
guys
I was
were.
never as open with anyone as I was with Katie. I did think Kirsten was a saboteur from very early, so I was very cautious with you.
I want to speed up to Final 4 because, Patrick, you felt safe had anybody won veto aside from Willie. But Willie, of course, wins the Final 4 power of veto. How did you manage to not get eliminated? Were there some type of magical thing that you were telling Willie, like, books keep me? What were you saying?
No, nothing magical. I mean, I did say going into that, Willie's the only person that can't win veto. Like, I have a 75% chance of staying. If Willie wins, I'm going to go. So, like, leading up to that round, I try, like, so, okay. The one thing that I never told Katie in this game was that Willie offered me a Final 2 at Final 5. And I never told Katie about it. That was the one thing, because I didn't want that to influence, like, Katie thinking that Willie would take me to the end and be shaded out by me or something. But I also knew that, like, he had that with Katie, and I didn't know where he stood with Mike, and I was just very confident that I was going to be leaving that round. So if Willie won. So leading up to that night, like the 24 hours leading up to it, I tried to, like, plant some little seeds in Willie's mind just about how Mike hadn't pissed anyone off, and about how Katie was going to win if she was at the end, so that if it was me next to either of them, or no, Katie was already HOH by that point.
I just want to point out that everyone who said I would win if I made it to the end didn't fucking vote for
my
me.
last question to my camera's
Oh,
voice.
and
go
Keith, to add to that, the one other thing I did was right after veto ended, I just got Willie on call. And I was like, not letting that call hang up until we got to the ceremony.
That's good. That's good. Okay, so Patrick, you were kind of conflicted on who you wanted to take to the final two. Do you want to take Willie? Do you want to take Katie? And you were thinking of like all the different options of like who you're potentially going to cut. And you mentioned every option. You mentioned I might cut Katie, I might cut Willie, I might cut Mike if it gets to that point. But what was the one thing that made you decide, hey, let me take Katie should you win the final HOH?
So I mean, I was gonna wait until I knew who the final three were to really like map that out. But I told Katie earlier that like 4 days ago I made a confessional where I said there's no way I'm taking Katie to the end. I'm not here to be Cody to her Derek. And then this was after the final three had been known. And then I woke up in the morning and I was like, I didn't think that I was like, I don't have it in me to do that. I was like, I don't care that much about this. Like, I do care about this game, but at this point, like, I have won a few Big Brother games that I've played now, so like to me, it's not the fact that I need a win, like just to know that I can do it. And at that point, I was like, if I lose this one, it's okay if it's to Katie. So I'm gonna go with her.
Gross.
Awesome, but it was Katie that came down to an incredible tiebreaker because y'all were saying different answers when it was like a 4-1 deficit. But Katie was able to pull out the win. Katie, were you ever considering taking Willie to the final two, or were you saying gung ho, let's just do or die, me and Patrick?
I'm gonna be honest with you, he didn't vote for me anyway. No, I was not. I was loyal to the end, and I'm gonna stick with that. My one thing was that I picked someone from the beginning, and I was loyal all the way to the end to it, and I lost because of it, and that's totally fine with me because I'm happy with the choices I made. I think honestly, if I had taken Willie, I probably would have had a better chance to win. But I could never do that to my ride or die, and I'm okay with that. So I didn't really consider it at all. I told Patrick that. I said in my confessionals. I said if Patrick and I make final three and I win HOH, like that's who I'm taking with me because I need to, regardless of how it goes, I needed to leave this game respecting myself. And that's how I would have done that. So I talked to Patrick about how terrible I would feel like if I had won the final HOH having to vote out Willie, and then I had to do that, and it felt terrible. And he said that it was good for him because that means he didn't have to take me to the end, which would have made him look bad. And so in the end, it seemed like that happened to me a lot. Like I had to make all these moves that made me look bad, and Patrick was in the background looking pretty awesome, and that worked out for him clearly. But I'm okay with that because you know what? In the end, this game is way more fun when you play it up front, and it's Big Brother. Like you're supposed to lie and do these crazy things and make big moves, and I did all that, and I'm happy with that.
So yeah, I just want to wrap up this reunion. Thank you all so much for your insight for what happened throughout this entire season. Patrick, once again, a very deserving winner. Congratulations. You are the winner of Big Brother Basics.
Thank you.
And tune in for next season should there be one. Congratulations and good night.